this is Holly, and this is Holly's roadmap to success. Now, Holly did not cooperate. You want to get down? Okay. Holly didn't cooperate in the videos that we shot that are above this one, but the techniques will still work. So in this one, I want for the roadmap, I'm just kind of going to go over a lot of the things we went over off camera. So for the issues with the grill, just watch those videos, and if they're not working, please call or text me. I'd rather you call or text me too much than not enough, and we'll ignore that for now. She's on the furniture. It's one of the rules. One of the things we talked about was rules, but we'll start off with exercise. She is a herding breed. Herding breeds typically need more structure and more exercise than other breeds of dogs. And so she's right now getting a walk, and she gets some exercise, but it's probably not enough. So one of the things I recommend that guardians do is start an exercise journal, write down the date at the top, write down the time, how long the walk was, the time, how many times we threw the treat up or down the stairs, the time, how many revolutions around the room with the laser, playing fetch, whatever the scent games, whatever they are. And at the end, and then write down the times you feed her, and if she has a barking incident or there's some other problem. And so that way, and at the end of the day, you assign a letter grade, A, B, C, D, or F. And then basically, after a while, and then each day you kind of play around with the variance of the different elements of exercise until you're like, wow, that was like an A day. Now, she's overall a really well-behaved dog, which a lot of these guys are. But the things that she's having problems with, that's what I would calibrate my grade on. And eventually you'll find the right amount of exercise where she feels better. Now, it's not going to, a lack of exercise isn't going to cause problems, but it will amplify problems. Now, she also didn't have, and also remember to do set games, because I think for her, that she's such a smart dog, I think that would really be helpful. And that's something, there are books on it. I would start out with just a Google search, but if she really responds to it, that might be great, because the family is going to be welcoming their first child here. And if so the mom has to bathe the child or change diapers or whatever, she can come in and hides a bunch of treats and then call the dog in and tell the dog to hunt, and then she gets to go do things in the nursery and the dog is occupied. I'm going to talk, I guess I'll talk a little bit about the pregnancy stuff first. So one of the things I like to do is what we call a conditioned emotional response, to create an association with something in one or two of the elements. So in this case, we want to do it with the smell of the baby. So when the baby comes, we want to go ahead and get a hand towel or a washcloth, have somebody wipe down the baby, and then put it in a Ziploc bag. Dad brings it back home, and then what I want Dad to do is have the high-value training treats and have them both behind his back. So if this is the dog, we'll simulate this for you since you're over there. Let's say this is the dog's nose. So I would let the dog sniff the towel. As soon as they sniff the towel, then I'm going to take the towel away and pop a treat in the dog's mouth. If we know the baby's name, say the baby's name. And then I go like this again, so I'm going to be doing kind of a back and forth. And do this for about 5 or 10 treats, about 2 or 3 times a day for the first 3 days after the baby's been born. This way, when the baby comes in the house, the dog is already going to be introduced to the smell and is going to have a positive association with not only the name, but with the smell. We can also put her in a position to succeed. I always recommend when we're going to, I don't know how long Mom is going to be at the hospital, but usually it's about a 3-day period. Well, that's a lot of time for the dog to kind of be hanging out at home. One of the things I mentioned for exercise is possibly getting an eye fetch and teaching her to play fetch in the house by herself. She's not kenneled during the day, but she's going to be spending a lot of time by herself for those 3 days. So she's not a big fan of dogs, of other dogs, or doesn't play a lot. So maybe a dog daycare wouldn't be the best option, but maybe having somebody come by who can stay here, or a couple of dog walks, so that by the time the baby comes home, she's had 2 or 3 days of a lot of heavy exercise that helps her stay comfortable when Dad's at the hospital. But then also, especially the first day when she comes home, we want to almost over-exercise her. Dogs sleep 17 hours a day on average, so they sleep a lot. And so if we keep the dog active throughout the day and get a lot of exercise in, when the baby and all the friends or relatives come by the first couple of days, the dog is already in position to succeed by being a lot more relaxed. Now we have a nursery, like a lot of people do when they have a baby. The dog should practice not going into the nursery. So I'd like the guardians to spend some time every day for about about a month until the baby's coming. So starts now, and go in that room and don't allow her into the threshold, to cross the threshold. Use the third escalating consequence to march her back. And as soon as don't sit down yourself until she's sitting, and keep your hips pointed at that doorway. Once she sits, then you can sit, but when you sit, she's probably going to try to come in, so stand up and use that third consequence to move her back, and you're going to go back and forth, almost feel like a waltz. But eventually she'll sit and lay down. Then you can sit down and have an iPad or a magazine or something where you can spend a little bit of time in there with her not going in there. This way the dog has practiced not going in here before the baby comes, which is much more enticing to get the dog to go in there. Also, I like the mom to, all the lotions that you get when you have a baby, to start taking a lotion and put one lotion a day on both forearms or wherever you want. And so the dog smells that particular lotion independent of the baby as well. If there's rattle toys, we can actually rattle, or something that's going to make anything that the dog might be reactive to. If we have what do you call them, one of those things where it makes a pleasant sound and it rotates the little toys. I'm not a dad. But there's, it's like what is it? Mobile, yeah, mobile. Mobile or mobile, I can't remember how to say it, but basically sometimes those make a sound, and that sound we can also create a positive association. I don't think she's going to have a problem with the sound, but creating that positive association can really be really beneficial. So pop a treat in her mouth and play the mobile, or whatever it is, and then stop the mobile as soon as she gets done chewing it, and keep on repeating that back and forth until again, the mobile goes, that means I'm pleasant, I'm feeling good, I like that sound. Okay, what else do we want to go over? I'm trying to think. There was something I will think about it in a minute. We went over rules. One of the rules would be the dog's not allowed on the furniture. I showed the guardians how to incorporate a dog bed and give the dog a command to go onto the dog bed. And that's really just tossing a treat, and when the dog looks up, we're going to say the word boat or whatever it is, and get a different name for each dog bed in the house and practice. So I do it, usually I throw about 5 or 10 treats in a row and let the dog go onto the bed, say the word, and then they'll leave. And then after that, if the dog goes there on their own, give them a treat or pet or say the word. And first is to entice the dog to go there, then it becomes to reward the dog for going there. I also like to give the dog directional commands. One of the rules is not being allowed in the furniture. Well, to get the dog off the furniture, I like to be force-free, so I take a treat, I touch the dog's nose with it, throw it on the ground. One of the first times the guardians did it, the dog looked at the guardian like, are you going to pick that up and put it in my mouth? And the guardian did not, because you want to play a little hard to get. Remember to do that. And after the dog realized the guardian sat back in the chair, he wasn't going to do that, she jumped down and licked it up. As soon as she licked it up, he said the word off. Remember, anytime you're using a treat, we want to say the command word after the treat goes in the dog's mouth. That makes it look a little bit more favorably upon the command. And so at that point, if the dog tries to come back, I would flash my hand, block the dog, but don't stand here like this. It's the dog's job to adhere to the rules, not ours. We're going to be there to enforce them if we need to. I'd also like the guardians to do that with directional commands, telling the dog to leave the room. So I'd like the guardians to go to every room in the house, take one of the trick or trainers that I'm leaving, split it in half, toss it 2 feet outside the room. When the dog goes up and licks it up, we say the word out. Let the dog come back and do the same thing. And then once we've got all the rooms in the house, then go repeat the whole process, but this time be inside the room or outside the room and throwing it the other direction. I'd like the guardians, each one of them, to do this with the dog once a day for the next week, and by the end of the week, you should be able to say out, and the dog runs out of the room happily. It's now motivated to do so, and we've trained it how we want to do it. Let me see, other rules we went over: not being allowed within 7 feet of anyone who's eating. So this is the main hangout room, so you might want to put painter's tape down where the line is so the dog can see where it is. Now, if this is the case, we might put a dog bed somewhere else outside of that area so the dog can kind of hang out, but we're not going to be eating all day, so she can stand or lay on the floor for a couple minutes while we're eating. But to be within 7 feet is a way of challenging for something, so if we let the dog get too close to us when we're eating, that's a way of, it confuses the dog. Also, I went over structured feeding with the guardians. I put food in the bowl. I don't allow the dog to eat. Then I eat something in 5 or more bites or my real meal, and then I feed the dog after. So you might want to just, when you guys eat dinner here, feed yourself and then feed the dog after. If you guys eat later in the day, like a lot of people do, then you can just put the food in the bowl. Don't let the dog eat, get near it within 7 feet of it. Eat 5 or more bites of a chip or cracker or carrot or something like that. Then invite the dog to come over and eat. When it takes its first bite of food, say a command word. I like fun command words, as I talked about off camera. So I say grub, chow, feast, and comida, which is Spanish for food. So basically, when the dog takes its first bite of food, if we're going to use the word feast, after it takes the first bite of food, say the word feast for about 2 months. After a while, I could say feast, and the dog was like, that means that I'm going to get fed some food. She doesn't have a problem with eating, but it's just nice to be able to do that on command. And because eating is such a primarily important activity for dogs, if the guardians demonstrate every day that I eat first and you eat after me, they are looked at with a little bit more respect as more of an authority figure. And it's just a healthy way to create a nice leader-follower dynamic. Now, she goes and sniffs the bowl and walks away. Pick up the bowl, dump it, put the empty bowl back down. Don't ever put the whole bowl up because she looks at it as taking it away. And she might go a couple days of not eating. If she goes longer than 3 days without eating, message me. But I'm betting it'll be about a day or 2, and then she starts eating on command. Okay, so other rules: have to sit before I let the dog in or out of the door. I say sit once, the dog doesn't sit within 3 seconds, walk away, sit down somewhere. Wait 1 minute. After 1 minute, go back to the door, tell her to sit, wait 3 seconds again. If she doesn't sit, walk away and sit down again, this time for 2 minutes, next time for 4, then for 8. So you keep doubling length of time. Now, she really likes going out the door before the humans. So if I don't have it included here, message me if you want me to show you. I have a video where you can show you how to teach the dog to not go through a door that's completely open. And again, that's another great way for the dog to develop some self-restraint and respect for the humans as authority figures. If she races up and down the stairs, we might want to teach her to stay, and then the humans go up and down the stairs so we don't trip over her. And also for dogs, whoever is in front perceived to be the leader, so we can help the dog see that we are the leader. The guardians, one of the things I recommend that they do also is also not being allowed in the kitchen when we're eating food, not allowed in the baby room. Those are some examples, rules. You might find some other rules you want to incorporate as well. Now, one of the things I like to do is recreate things and help the dog practice in an easier capacity. So if it's really hard for her to stay out of the kitchen, go in the kitchen, microwave a piece of bacon, put it on the counter, and then pretend like you're cooking. When you're really cooking, you're paying attention to all the other things that are going on, and you're not paying attention to the dog, so your timing is late. You have 3 seconds to correct or reward your dog for them to have the ability to make the connection, but it has to be consistent, which is why it's so important that you are very strict on the rules for the next 30 days minimum, or as long as the problem's still going on. So what I can do is I can simulate like the smell of cooking, and then I turn on the stove and the oven and I open the fridge and I do all this stuff, and the dog has to stay beyond the boundary out of the kitchen. If it tries to come in, we rush towards the dog, use that third consequence, until the dog starts sitting and laying down outside the boundary. Then we put the bacon and all the rest of the fake stuff away, and then we do our actual cooking. We do the same thing with eating food in here. Microwave a piece of roast beef and do the same principle. That way we help the dog practice the behavior in easy capacity, and our timing is going to be better because we're not actually eating the bacon or the roast beef. Let me see, what else? We went over petting with a purpose and passive training. Remember, if the dog demands attention, we don't pet it. We tell the dog to do something else to earn that attention. That is another great way to flip the leader-follower dynamic and have the dog respect us a little bit more like as authority figures. Remember, when you pet, try to pet under the chin whenever possible. Use just the command word. Don't say good sit, just sit. Also, in terms of command words, a little frog in my throat, try to come up with funny command words. One of the things I recommend the guardians do is to start teaching the dog a new trick each week because she's such a smart dog. So if each guardian teaches her 4 tricks each, at the end of 2 months, that's like 8 new tricks. Now the dog is going to have a boost of self-esteem, but also respect both of the guardians a little bit more because the guardians they're tied to that boost of self-esteem and confidence that they learned. It's also a great way to redirect the dog's attention. One of the tricks should be that mom should teach is to teach the dog to go put its toys in the box. Google it, it's easy to do. Also name all the individual toys. I use passive training a lot. So every time the dog comes to me on its own, I pet it and say sit, or I pet it and say come, excuse me. If it sits next to me, I pet it and say sit. If it lays down, I pet it and say crash. Remember, use funny command words. After a while, if I name all the toys, I can tell the dog, no, get the moose, box. Universe, box. Octopus, box. And that becomes a game for the dog to do at the end of the day. And after a while, you'll start seeing the dog doing that on its own. So remember to say recognize or test or something, a reward or something like that. If you see the dog walks towards one of you and you missed it and the dog sat down, what's a desired behavior? That's a behavior we want. We need to teach the dog that that's not only is it wanted, it's something we recognize and respect and will reward you for. So just pet it on its chin and just say whatever the command word is. Do that for sit, come, lay down, yawning, anything that your dog does that's unusual. Now the dog, I'd also like the guardians to teach the dog to stay. She has a tendency to follow them around everywhere they go, and so that's another indication of either insecurity or I think I have to look out for these humans. Well, if we teach her for a stay, I teach first for duration up to 5 minutes where the dog's right here. Then I teach for distance. Then I teach for distractions. So if you need a video for that, message me. I have a bunch of videos. I've shown people how to do it. But teaching it to stay, it takes a lot of practice, but it's really effective. If the baby drops something or whatever, you put the dog in a stay and then go in the other room, grab the mop, and come in and clean it up, and knowing that the dog's not going to come and try to eat that stuff. Now, also, the dog really gets nuts at the theme song of Modern Family, and what was the other one? And Pop-Tart commercial. So there must be some sort of sound that's emanating from that commercial that the dog freaks out about. It does circles, which is not a healthy thing for it to do. So what we want to do is use counter conditioning, a little bit of what I talked about in the video above. So have the guardian have the DVR queued up with Modern Family, lower the volume so you can barely hear it in the kitchen, and have the dog on leash in the kitchen with the high value training treats. Give a treat to the dog while it's chewing it, Come up with a word or a command to be on the phone or whatever, say now. Don't just say now every time. The dog eventually that'll become a command word. But as soon as, so the idea is the dog's chewing the treat while it's hearing Modern Family theme song playing, but playing at such a low volume that it doesn't feel it to be a threat. And then we help it practice until it can take a treat there 4 or 5 times. And every time the treat is about to be gone, pause or mute it. So the only time I hear the theme song is when the treat is in my mouth. After the dog does it a couple times at that distance, and move 1 foot forward and keep practicing. And as soon as the dog won't sit or won't take the treat, it's getting close to its breaking point. Make sure you only practice when the dog's calm and balanced. And eventually you get to the point where the dog will be right in front of the TV and it won't be doing these things. Now, let me see, what else? Petting. The guardian I saw at times were petting the dog when the dog was asking for attention. But also, if the dog is in an unbalanced state of mind and we pet it, we're reinforcing whatever the dog is doing at the time. One of the guardians comes, she's bonded more to one of the guardians than the other. When he comes home, she's very excited. So when that happens, just ignore her. Don't tell her no, don't even look at her. And after a while, she'll kind of settle herself down. When she does, reach for her. You won't even be able to get all the way to her. You just turn and look at her and start reaching, and she'll start wiggling. Just put your arm down and continue doing what you're doing. You'll have to abort several times, but eventually it gets to the point where you can pet her and she's staying calm. What we're saying is when you're nice and calm, I'm interested in petting you. When you're excited, I don't even see you. And this is a great way for the dog to start developing a little bit more self-control because, again, when the baby comes, we want the dog to adopt a calm, balanced state of mind. Excited is not happy. Also, if the dog is fearful, we need to not pet the dog when it's fearful, anxious, stressed, because all those things, whatever your dog's doing when you pet is what you're reinforcing. Is there anything else I forgot? I think we covered just about everything. Now, if you have any questions, like I said, please call me or text me. If I don't hear from you, I assume everything's going great. And I live close by, so if we need to work on the grill or there's something weird going on with the baby, I'm happy to stop by real quick. And if we need to, we can set up a session to do bat training. But I think if anything, I might come by spend a couple minutes just fine-tuning a couple things. All right, well, normally this is where I'd say this is Holly, but I don't know where Holly is. She's hiding over here. This is Holly's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.